Welcome, dear students. In this second video on the Reformation, we are going to look into the beginning of the Reformation. And to do so, we need to look at Martin Luther, a German monk who started to get great doubts on the teachings of the Church regarding purgatory, indulgences, and soul salvation at the beginning of the 16th century. The Church had claimed that good acts, pilgrimage, or even the simple donations to the church could save your soul. But Luther started to wonder if it could really be that simple. Could salvation lay in a simple act? The answer for this devout monk turned out to be a simple no. Luther did not find any proof for indulgences, relics, or purgatory, the power of popes in the Bible, which he had studied very well, being a professor in theology. So when he heard word of indulgences being sold by a Dominican preacher, Tetzel, he decided to write his 95 theses, actually to start a debate on the selling of indulgences, just like the humanists before him. Not to start a new church. The core idea of his writing was that indulgences were a fraud. And the church was greedy. They only sold indulgences to make money. To buy new golden things for their churches or to remodel the Vatican again. The church therefore was not busy with the spiritual well-being of the people. They were only focusing on the outside, and the popes claimed power to which they had no right. They could not be found anywhere in the Bible, which then meant that the church did not follow the Bible. And therefore he concluded that Christians were not being taught true religion. Now, even though the ideas of Luther were written in Latin, just like the ideas of all the humanists who had criticized the church, his ideas quickly spread over Germany. This was mainly because of the invention of the printing press, which now made it possible to produce cartoons and pictures in woodcuts quickly and on a large scale. People were maybe not able to read, but they understood the meaning of the drawings which showed the Pope as Satan or as a donkey, or showed that indulgences were just being sold to get more money very well. And this was threatening to the church, as indulgences were a major source of income for the church. And Luther actually said that the Pope had no power, while the Vatican wanted the people to blindly follow the Pope. So, Pope Leo X, who was furious with Luther, called upon Charles, the Emperor of the Holy Roman German Empire, to call out Luther to a meeting in the German Parliament, bring him to trial. Luther agreed in 1521, and he came to the city of Worms. Luther, who was charged with heresy, was told to take this heresy back. Luther, though, refused to do so, defending himself by replying that they should prove him wrong by quoting him from the Bible, where it shows that he is wrong, or where it shows that the Pope has power, or that there were indulgences. Whatever. Quote me from the Bible. Of course, none of the accusers could, but still this did not stop Charles V from banning Luther as an outlaw, which now meant that he was and excommunicated and persona non grata, and this then meant that he was in fear of his life. Luckily for Luther, he finds protection from his friend Prince Frederick the Wise, who keeps him safe in one of his castles in Saxony. But after a year, he returns to Wittenberg, where he's celebrated as a hero as he stood up against the greedy church, and where he starts to work on further reform movement, building up his church, which was quickly baptized the Protestant Church. After his year in hiding and returning to Wittenberg, as said, as a hero, Luther decided to reform his own church. And within a few years, this really came about. Some big changes in his church took place. First of all, the authority of the Pope was ended. The king now was considered the head of the church. Next to that, he said the sermons should be in the language of the people, not in Latin, which in Saxony, in Wittenberg, meant that the sermons should be in German, of course. Priests were now allowed to marry. The vow of celibacy was kicked aside. And also monasteries were closed down, which of course was for a big advantage of the king, who now would receive all the land of these former monasteries, which used to be of the church. Next to that, the veneration of relics, of saints, of statues of saints was ended. This could not lead to any salvation, and neither could a pilgrimage. You wouldn't be saved if you went anywhere to act for God. No, the core idea became that you had to study the Bible for salvation. Live according to the Word of God. A devout life. A devout life. Now, Luther quickly managed to get a big group of followers, and this group of followers was quickly baptized Protestants, but the term Protestants is nowadays used for all Protestant movements. Luther, with his reform movement, was the first at the beginning of the 16th century, but he quickly gets followers all over Europe who all have their own idea of what the church should look like, of which Calvin is the most important for the Netherlands. But we'll look at him at a different point. Toodles!